Okay, Mrs. Vice Mayor, why are we here this afternoon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank my colleagues for supporting me. Before I begin, it's important to note that this meeting was called in accordance with all our city policies and with sufficient time to notice to our community with full transparency. When the clerk asked if I had backup information for this item, I said the administrative evaluations description should be more than explanatory. I even spoke to our manager when he contacted me. The intentions of this meeting was to evaluate the administration and the fluctuation of key staff and institutional knowledge that have left our city in the last 12 months. Just last Monday, we lost our second HR director in 12 months, and these concerns have been brought to my attention by members of the community. I never received communication through the clerk's office that any of my colleagues did not have sufficient backup information. However, this meeting has now escalated to nonsense and untrue allegations, insubordination, intimidation, and bullying by our manager. Needless to say that he is breaking a number of city charter, city codes, and every ICMA code of conduct and ethics rules, which is in his contract. When our manager directly disrespects our charter, our city code of conduct, and our orders as a body, he directly disrespects our residents, which connected us. And that is what our manager has done these past few days. In our last council meeting, we reached consensus that not only was the manager to follow what Code Section 2-380 states, but also that this code section would be strengthened by adding language that further avoids situations where the personal statements of city employees can be considered the city's official position. So I'm sure all of you were just as shocked as I was to hear that last Friday, the manager called a press conference in his official capacity to make accusations and speculate on a meeting that had not even taken place. He used city staff during city business hours at our city hall, all at taxpayers' expense. These alone are reasons enough to dismiss him as our administrator. However, I will not be addressing those allegations from this dais because I do not believe that this is the platform to do so. We are here because we were elected to work as professionals, to put forward the will of our residents. So let's evaluate this administration. I'll start with the outrageous number of directors and key staff that we have lost, over 20 in the last 12 to 14 months. This directly creates an immense amount of instability and reflects greatly on our administration and the morale of our city employees. This does not allow for our city to move forward and progress. At the March meeting, the Doral Community Coalition came before us and expressed their extreme dissatisfaction on how the 114th Avenue Park has been handled, and I share in their concerns. I think that this council has taken a strong position on the priority of our parks. However, this shows a lack of the administration's ability to execute on our priorities as a council and our residents. They have been holding us back for more than a year now. At our last strategic planning session, the number one priority unanimously of this council was to enforce and enhance our communication with the public. I proposed a monthly newsletter that was unanimously approved by this council, and we have yet to see one go out 1 year later. We had recently made some positive strides towards DORAL-TV, but about a month ago, we lost all 4 employees, 2 of which resigned in the same day, making it obvious that the environment at City Hall was toxic. Over a year ago, we approved beautification plans and infrastructure for our Doral Decor District, dollars that had been budgeted for an area in the city that desperately needs it. And again, the directions of our administration have gone ignored. We have 2 assistant city managers versus 1, which we had for 10 years. And less has been done in this year than ever before in the history of our city. I fear that our taxpayers' dollars are being misspent, as it's obvious that our city manager is placing all his energy on non-city related objectives during city hours. I think it's obvious that the accusations that have been made are a desperate cry for our manager to discredit me and my colleagues. I think that my track record as a public servant speaks for itself. I do what is right for our city and its residents. Our job here is to make our city progress. It is our responsibility as a council to choose an administrator that reflects and shares in our vision for this city. I cannot stand here today and say that this manager has done that. I will not continue to sit by and watch our city be run by fear and intimidation instead of collaboration. I believe that we have an obligation to our residents that elected us and put us here and gave us their confidence to run this city. We need to bring a professional that will work in the benefit of our community and not smear the reputation that so many have worked so hard to build for this city. I have given this much thought, as I do not take these actions lightly. Mayor and colleagues, we need a manager that can execute projects timely, that can build morale amongst our employees, that has institutional knowledge of our city, that will make a efficient transition without having downtime, that will make us move forward in the right direction. We had that employee here 2 months ago. That is why, Mr. Mayor, I know that it's your prerogative to make a nomination for city manager under the charter. However, it also does not state in our charter that we cannot give you a viable recommendation. So, Mr. Mayor, I respectfully ask, and after giving this much thought and wondering who can we find that would be able to make this transition in a swift way, and the answer was clear to me. I think, Mr. Mayor, that you should reach out to Mr. Nathan Cogan, our former planning and zoning director. Mr. Cogan had been with our city for more than 9 years. As of 2 months ago, he left under very unfortunate circumstances. He is an individual who knows every aspect of the city. He has institutional knowledge that is irreplaceable. This is the type of city manager we need to bring our city back on track. Mr. Cogan is a resident of our city, and I believe that with the support of my colleagues, Mr. Mayor, you could reach out to Mr. Cogan and recruit him as our manager. I know Mr. Cogan has the highest level of integrity and would serve our community well, as he did for so many years. We each personally know Mr. Cogan. Our staff knows Mr. Cogan. Our business community knows Mr. Cogan. And more importantly, our residents know Mr. Cogan. I think it's time that our staff and our government have true stability so that we can move forward in what we were elected to do, what is good for this city. Mr. Mayor and colleagues, I am ready tonight to support a motion to terminate Mr. Carollo as our current city manager and nominate Mr. Nathan Cogan as our next city manager.
Well, at this point, I would like to hear a second to the dismiss of the manager of this city, and then I will take that into consideration. But before that, I want to make sure that we have done everything in the proper manner, and for that, I would like to ask the city attorney at this point if this meeting was properly advertised to the public.
Yes, it was.
Okay, being said, I would like to hear the second to the motion to dismiss the manager at this point.
I'm going to second it for purposes of discussion, similar to what I did, Mayor, when you proposed it a few months ago.
Okay, any discussions from this council?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Vice Mayor, for letting us know what this is about. I, as you know, probably have circulated a press release with a copy of the email that I sent on Thursday, requesting explanation. I really feel to call a public meeting and put administrative evaluations does not explain what this public meeting is for. And I do believe that the residents of this city and I and your colleagues deserve more than just two words to explain this. So I do not know, and I would like to ask the clerk if she did not send this request to you. Mrs. Clerk? Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman, thank you. I received the request and I responded that at the moment I did not have any backup. I spoke with the Vice Mayor and I asked to see if she had any backup. She indicated that she did not at the time. Other than that, those were the communications I made.
Thank you. And I have said, and I will say again, that this has created a media frenzy that if you had simply stated what you just stated now, then everybody would know what this was about. I think that in order to make a decision, I would like to also hear from the manager and the assistant city manager concerning why of this dismissals, because I think that is important to clarify. I would also like to state that Mr. Nathan Cohen, although I work very, very closely with him, I think he is a great professional. I also know that he had many, many pages of documentation of harassment and instigation caused by the mayor and other people that were working with him. It's interesting because one of the reasons that he was very uncomfortable here is because of the harassment that he was undergoing while he was here.
Point of privilege. I would like you to refrain to offending me, okay?
No, I'm not
And
offending
please,
you.
Councilwoman Bettina Rodriguez Aguilera, I would like you to ask respectfully, with respect my position and respect not only the office of the mayor. I think what you're saying is not correct, and for the record, I would like you to, apologize to me because
Sir,
I
I
believe
not
what you're saying.
apologize for something that is true. I'm not lying. I'm just basically stating a fact. Again, I would like to have both I understand that's what happened with the director or the person that was handling communication is some issue that happened with the new assistant city manager, Mrs. Van Gates, and I think it is proper for her to explain and for us to have transparency in that. And also for Mr. Carollo to explain, because if this is a public forum, one of the things that I have been very adamant for is that when things are placed on agenda, they should be open and transparent. If you have placed an agenda, has not been open and transparent, if you had answered my request of explaining what this meeting was about, then there would have been no speculations. And I would have been very happy because I do think that we need to evaluate, and I agree with you that we need to understand why these things are happening, and our residents need to know why these things are happening. But in the matter that this meeting was called for, and for you to say that you did not know and the city clerk just agreed that she did know is, I think, the wrong way of doing things.
I want to clarify, I never received communication that you did not have sufficient backup, and I want the clerk to clarify that she never said that you had communicated that. It was a question of was there backup at this time, not one of your colleagues is just requesting backup at this time. So that I would like to put. The assistant city manager had sent me asking, and I explained that there was no formal way to prepare for this meeting. The purpose of this meeting was because as a body we direct staff. I cannot individually ask the staff to do something. And I wanted to talk about doing research on comparable city staff salaries and evaluations because it was of a concern. So since we were having 2 other meetings, I had placed it on the agenda to discuss exactly that. That someone else began to speculate what this was about is on that person. So, this got out of proportion not because of me. And it was noticed properly, and I did explain to the clerk, and I did speak with the manager's office about this. So I'm very sorry that you did not get that information, but that's coming directly from the officials that you're dealing with. Because I was never noticed that you, my colleague, was not sufficiently prepared for this meeting. I just want to clarify that. As for the other accusations of Mr. Kogan or any director having paperwork on one of our colleagues, I think that that's inappropriate comments to make right at this moment. And I think that we should keep this professional.
It's the truth.
If I agree, comments that were made regarding any sort of improper behavior or, any alluding to things are news to me. And again, it goes back to the fact that maybe some elected officials are privy to more information than, quite frankly, my office. As to the media frenzy, and I welcome all members of the media that are here today, this isn't an open meeting, and you're more than welcome to be here. The media frenzy was actually not created by the elected officials, but by staff. So I was at the park very early, preparing for American Cancer for the Relay for Life since 8 o'clock in the morning, and I started receiving phone calls at 3, 4, 5. No idea what had occurred, no idea the manager had called for a press conference. I was being asked questions, and quite frankly, I didn't comment at that time because I was unaware as to what he would actually be saying. I think that, we have such an amazing opportunity here in the city of Doral. We've built it. It took us 10 years to obtain the reputation that we've been able to build as one of the premier places to live, to do business, to raise your family. We've delivered parks in record time. We have this beautiful building, although there was a little controversy as to how it moved along with some expenses, but it's here. And so we, as a community which is known to be 78% Hispanic, continue to have an opportunity to mark such a difference not only in South Florida, but throughout the nation. And I believe that what has occurred over the last year has truly been an embarrassment to many. It's been such an eyesore. I mean, we have become, needless to say, almost a laughing stock of South State for whatever reason, or South Florida for whatever reason, whether it's one person or another issue. But what has occurred with this administration does not help the city of Doral. When I receive calls from the media, from Pancho sitting here from Conexiones, letting me know that he was prohibited access to a press conference here at City Hall. When I have students, and I know you're welcome to touch on it, Mr. Manager, who are sitting in a conference room and they're basically being told that they cannot even be on the premises. When I have a manager storm into a conference room where I'm sitting and basically goes, "Hey, you out here now," I mean, that is incredibly disrespectful. When I turn on the news and I have the manager of the city of Doral mocking, I won't just say an elected official, I'll speak for myself, mocking me, supposing that I was in some sort of meltdown, laughing at me. It is not what this city deserves. And it is not any news to the manager, because I've had this conversation with you in December when my colleagues gave you, I think it was December, I won't correct me on the date, the October. I could not vote on giving you the, a vote of confidence. And you and I politely told you, I just can't in good conscience do it. It was a 3-2 vote for it to continue. I think we've had some very good opportunities over the last few months. I thank you for your help. I know Rhonda is a great addition, and I think that we have had a more tranquil understanding of actually working together to get things done for our city. But when I see some of these other things, it truly unsettles me to see whether or not a true transformation can take place long term. And again, I had that concern at the beginning. I continue to have it. I was very disheartened to see what occurred. I gave, and I'll speak very few interviews. I think I gave one to Univision and one other, and quite frankly, for me it's a surprise. I didn't know what to expect today. I must admit, I didn't know what to expect. But I think this is exactly what everyone on this council has been talking about, an open dialogue, a professional open dialogue amongst colleagues who are responsible for things that occur in the city of Doral. We have received complaints from various boards. We have the International Affairs Board here, where protocol is just not being followed. We don't have enough staff to meet and greet the dignitaries that come, where the media doesn't believe that they're being treated fairly with access to everything from announcements to paid media pages. And one of the things that concerns me the most is, and if I may, Mayor, and I'll wrap it up in 30 seconds, is these constant comments that there is corruption at the city of Doral, and I'm a little unclear as to whether they're saying corruption within the government, or corruption within our residents, or corruption in our businesses. And quite frankly, I think there are agencies that are in charge of doing that. So now I'm having to respond to the media that I don't know which corruption or what corruption is being discussed, because where our charter officials go on the record stating when a resident returns from Venezuela or leaves for Venezuela and with how much money, I mean, it unsettles me. Are residents being investigated left and right? Are businesses being investigated left and right? Are tax returns being requested for people? I mean, I myself in my business, in Kendall, my husband's business in Kendall, we have a City of Doral police marked car parked outside of our office. I mean, is it a coincidence? I don't know. But it is very, very unsettling. And I'm an elected official. I can only imagine what you guys as businesses and residents go through.
Thank you so much. I'd like to ask to refrain to the end.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to appreciate everyone's comments. We live in a democracy and everyone has a right to their opinion and to their comments. I want to focus on some of the facts of things that have occurred over the last 18 months, which I'm not insulting anybody, I'm not making any personal comments about anybody's behavior, I'm just going to focus on some of the facts. In the last 18 months, since November of 2012, we've had 3 city managers going now. I guess after today we might have a 4th city manager. We had Yvonne Soler-McKennedy, who was our manager from the previous administration. We had Merritt Stearman as an interim city manager, and now we have Mr. Croy. To me, there's a one common denominator in that it was 18 months. Okay. City attorneys. We started out with Jeannie Morales from the law firm of Stearns Weaver. We went on to Greg Robinson with John Aaron, and now we have Weiss, Rhoda, Gill, and Dan, our city attorneys now. In the last 18 months, we've had 3 chiefs of police. We had Ricky Gomez, who was also from the previous administration. We had Miguel Perez, and now we have Chief Richard Long. Those are very key leadership positions in our city, and it's very disconcerting when we have such a high turnover. And someone may reference high turnover of employees, but I think that the high turnover of charter officials is also very telling and indicative of the instability in the council. So far as the resignations of the employees, I would like to hear from the city assistant city attorney, from Ms. Rhonda Van Gates, and I would also like to hear from the city manager in regards to some of the allegations and things that have been said in the last few minutes. Insofar as the finances of the city, I'm happy to say that the city has had a record amount of reserves in place, which is thanks to the leadership, and everyone on this council actually commended the manager for the fine job that he and our city finance director, Elisa Rossi, did in not only the amended city budget when he came in, but the new city budget for the current year. So these are all things that, I see the negatives, I see what everyone's saying, but I think we also need to focus on some of the positive things that have happened under this management. And then lastly, the last thing I wanted to say is, I think that when elected officials try to control city employees and try not to allow the city manager to do the city manager's job, we run into problems. Okay, I think one of the things that Councilwoman Rodriguez Aguilera said, without going into specific details, it is very telling, about the fact that at one point in time, a particular employee was having some serious issues with regards to intervention of people on the council. And this is not the first time that this has happened. There have been many instances of intervention where it's not appropriate for the city council as policymakers, which is what we are, to intervene in administrative issues. Having said that, Mr. Mayor, you want to go ahead and recognize anyone else that wants to speak at this time.
Thank you so much. At this point, based on the charter, if you look at the, if I'm not mistaken, the contract of the manager says that this contract is at will, and we can just terminate in any time. Also, the charter is very clear that if it's the desire of this council to terminate the manager, we can do it without even any notice. That's why I would like to ask the clerk to call the question.
I just want to make one final comment before we take this vote, and I want to leave my colleagues with this. We are here to do what is right and not what is easy.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, before they call the question, it's twofold, because at the end of the day, the only person who can nominate is you as the mayor of the city. And after this vote is taken, I really would like a candid discussion amongst the body here as to whatever process may be to fill, or however the vote may be. But we need a follow-up. We can't leave it up in the air.
Mr. Manager? Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor.
No, Mr. Mayor, everyone has spoken twice, I have a right to do so, please. Mr. Mayor, I am not going to stop talking, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have a right to speak, Mr. Attorney. Mr. Attorney, everyone has spoken twice except me, I have a right to speak, even the question had already been called by the mayor. I have a right to speak, is that true or not?
Mr. City Attorney, can you please advise?
I just called the question.
He already had called the question when he allowed the other two colleagues to speak.
Could you please read the rule for call the question, then she understand better?
All council members should have the opportunity to speak, and that should not be abridged, except certainly calling procedural matters. The calling of the question does intervene on discussion, and any member of the council, including the mayor, can call the question at any time.
Yes, but he already called the question when he allowed the other two council members to speak. And he has not allowed me to speak twice, and he allowed the others. So I do have the right to speak as the same as my other colleagues.
I call motion to call question.
Any second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr.
Clerk,
Mayor,
please call the
you
question.
said as well, that's the problem.
There are two council members that
I'm
have.
gonna ask you one more time, otherwise I'm gonna have to remove you from the
Oh,
council.
really?
Yes.
Mr. City Attorney, I will call the question, correct?
The question is the procedural question.
This is
No.
motion to call the question, correct?
Right.
I'm calling the question on motion to call the question. Motion to call the question made by Vice Mayor Fraga and seconded by Councilwoman Ruiz. Vice Mayor Fraga.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ruiz.
I have a question for the county attorney. if I may.
Yes, please.
Discussion on the floor,
Councilwoman Rodriguez.
No.
Councilwoman Rodriguez Aguilera. No. Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson passes.
Okay, call the question, Madam Clerk.
Motion to terminate the contract with the city manager. Vice Mayor Fraga.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rodriguez.
No.
Councilwoman Rodriguez Aguilera.
No.
Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Now, I would like to make a more, if I get support, I'd like to have Mr. Jose Olivo as the interim. I hear your suggestion, I will take that in real high consideration. I will talk to Mr. Nathan Cogan and see what the positions he has. But at this point, I would like to call, to receive support, to call Mr. Jose Olivo as the interim manager for a couple of months.
I second your motion. and I do have some comments.
Mr. Mayor? I think it's extremely important.
Please, slightly, microphone.
Thank you. I think it is incredibly important for the city of Doral to actually have a very clear process to research. We're in this position because we all talk about transparency and getting it out there, but if you recall, the night that the gentleman that was with us as city manager was nominated, there was no notice.
Se destituyeron.
Carollo, ¿qué sucedió? ¿Por qué se retiró?
Vamos a ver si podemos yo me retiré simplemente. Me votaron, como yo dije que iba a pasar, pero por lo menos no pudieron hacerme la emboscada que querían. Segundamente, como vieron, violaron todo el proceso en no dejarme a mí hablar, como la Constitución de la ciudad dice que el administrador puede hablar más en un proceso como este. Pero ni siquiera prácticamente permitieron que dos concejales electos pudieran de verdad expresarse. Y por último, la Carta Constitutiva dice que el público tiene un derecho de expresarse, ni siquiera querían que eso pasara. Pero ustedes de la prensa, yo lo que quiero pedirles es lo siguiente. En la conferencia de prensa que yo di el viernes, nada más que hubieron dos cosas en sí que yo toqué clave, que fueron la razón por esa conferencia de prensa. Que el alcalde me había dicho a mí que algo que yo confirmé antes de esa conferencia de prensa, que el año pasado él fue a la fiscalía a quejarse que un familiar del esposo de la ahora vicealcaldesa Fraga lo había venido a ver a él para ofrecerle el tercer voto de la señora Fraga para votarme a mí de administrador si él pagaba una suma de dinero. Simplemente ustedes tienen una responsabilidad de que el alcalde conteste si él hizo eso o no lo hizo y es mentira. Como ya saben, la fiscalía, algunos de ustedes de los medios, le ha dicho que no pueden dar información de eso por ahora y han citado el estatuto estatal, que es el que dice que no lo pueden dar porque hay una investigación andando. Entonces, ¿cómo es que la vicealcaldesa Fraga se va a molestar tanto conmigo en vez de con la persona, que es el señor Boria, que fue a la fiscalía a denunciar? Y francamente, no creo que fue por buen ciudadano, fue porque cuando su abogado en ese entonces, que ya no lo es, Dexter Lightning, supo de eso, le dijo, ve rápido para allá, por el miedo que lo estuvieran grabando y él estuviera en peligro de no haber reportado un crimen como eso.
¿Qué argumentos le dieron para votarlo?
Segundo, en la conferencia de prensa que di el viernes, di a conocer que la vicealcaldesa Fraga había llamado a alguien la semana anterior para preguntarle si quería el puesto de administrador, que eso no se ha desmentido porque fue un hecho. O sea que estaban planeando esto desde ahora ya. Entonces esas son las dos cosas que yo creo que ustedes tienen una obligación de hablar. Y en cuanto a toda la bobería que han dicho, que yo, si esto, si lo otro, esta ciudad de Doral, desde que yo vine, le he ahorrado más de 20 millones y pico de dólares. Tiene la reserva más alta en su historia porque Joe Carollo vino aquí y la cayó el presupuesto arriba. La propia vicealcaldesa que está hablando de empleados que no se han ido, la moral, con su esposo me dijeron solamente hace semanas atrás que yo podía quedarme como administrador hasta el tiempo que quisieran, porque los empleados me querían, los directores me amaban, que yo había traído la moral como nunca a la ciudad de Doral. Vamos a estar muy claros. Y las personas, los tres que votaron para votarme en el día de hoy, saben muy bien de investigaciones que están andando, porque ellos mismos lo han dicho, las supinas, o sea, la orden judicial para archivos financieros y para otras cosas que han llegado. Y quiero estar claro, desde marzo del año pasado, 2013, desde el año 2013, marzo, yo he estado cooperando con diferentes agencias investigativas, tanto a nivel federal como a nivel local, que están investigando corrupción en Doral y corrupción de personas que se sienten ahí.
Hicieron fuertes acusaciones en su contra hoy referente a posible acoso, de harassment. Quería su reacción al respecto y la falta de respeto que existía con su administración.
Mira, todo esto que han tirado es la cortina de humo con el pataleo que tienen y saben muy bien por qué es. Aquí pueden traer a todas las personas que francamente no es una gran cantidad, que han renunciado de que yo he estado acá. Y directores han ido en parte por la inestabilidad que ellos están creando ahí, porque no se sienten confortables en sus posiciones acá, porque han recibido mejores ofertas, pero como la propia vicealcaldesa me dijo hace 4 semanas con su esposo, usted se puede quedar el tiempo que quiera de administrador, porque los empleados lo aman, los directores lo quieren. Nunca ha habido un administrador que ha tenido el consenso de todos los directores. Entonces, para que vengan con todos estos cuentos que simplemente no son verdad, esto es parte de la cortina de humo. Y nadie puede negar que lo que yo dije el viernes no fue verdad, porque lo vieron aquí. Lo que pasa es que no tuvieron el coraje de ponerlo como personas decentes lo hacen, como la ley de verdad indica. El abogado jovencito que tienen aquí, que reemplazaron el pasado abogado de experiencia, porque el mayor es una persona decente que sí tiene experiencia, pero que lleva la voz cantante este jovencito. Tienen nada más unos 3 meses de experiencia de tener y trabajar en leyes de ciudades. Y fue cuando ya estaban planeando traerlo para acá, que trabajó unos 3 meses más o menos en una ciudadita de 1000 personas. Un abogado que nada más que tiene 5 años de graduarse del Florida Bar. O sea que todo esto estuvo planeado, sacar el pasado abogado, traer a alguien que no tiene la experiencia para empezar conmigo y empezar con otros acá.
¿Qué va a hacer Carollo?
Carollo. Bueno, lo que voy a hacer es simplemente, y pueden ver lo que yo dije el mes pasado, cuando vino la graduación de 15 policías nuevos, que por sí vino la primera venezolana y la primera colombiana, por mí, no por nadie que se sienta ahí. En esa graduación, que yo cuando me pidieron que hablara, hablé de corrupción pública y le dije a los que estaban ahí, a todos del cuerpo de policía, que yo no sabía si iba a durar un día más, una semana más, un mes más, pero que aunque fuera administrador o no, iba a terminar la labor que esperaban los residentes de acá y los empleados de esta ciudad que yo hiciera. Y eso lo voy a terminar. Y poco a poco van a ver quiénes son estas personas que se han comportado como si esto fuera el Congreso venezolano, como si Diosdado fuera el que estuviera mandado ahí. Simplemente la democracia como la llevan acá la quieren apagar igual que en Venezuela. Las tácticas
son corruptas.
¿Cómo?
Son corruptos los que lo destituyeron.
Bueno,
eso es lo que está diciendo.
Yo le puedo asegurar con las cosas, sí, hay corruptos que están sentados ahí arriba.
El alcalde Boria es corrupto.
En mi opinión, el señor Boria ha enseñado corrupción. Y cuando quieran que ponga la demanda, que mis abogados están listos, para contestarlas.
Cristi Fraga
Pero,
corrupta.
mire, Cristi Fraga, voy a hablar de ella también, voy a hablar de Sandra Reis y voy a hablar del señor Boria. Sobre todo, voy a enseñar la prueba que hasta un ciego va a poder ver de los negocios del señor Boria con el gobierno de Venezuela. Y por ahí vamos a empezar.
¿Serás tú el corrupto? ¿Serás tú corrupto?
Mire, usted es uno de los aliados de ellos. No quiero hablar porque vayan a la clase de gente que están con ellos. Un señor que dio un reporte falso bajo juramento al interno
dinero y lo que queremos hacer por la ciudad. ¿Será usted corrupto? Contesta eso.
El corrupto es alguien como usted y su aliado.
Stop bringing
Que
on.
vino
Tell me what he did.
acá a
Nunca
dar
ha tenido nada.
reporte falso bajo la ley y abajo juramento, tratando de coger dinero de la ciudad.
Carollo, yo me retiro. Yo llevo 27 años en el Departamento de Justicia. Tú tienes una de las más limpias ejecutorias como funcionario en el sur de la Florida. Esto es una vendetta.
Así es.
Esto es una vendetta lo que está pasado
Mire,
aquí.
este es un señor
Y usted lo sabe
que ha
mejor
hecho
que yo.
su dinero.
Esto no va a terminar hoy.
No.
Hoy empieza en el
claro.
Doral una de las investigaciones por realizarse que usted, gracias a usted, Carollo.
As the president of the Doral Chamber, my job is to bring business here. The conversation that I was hearing before today with the attitude and behavior of Mr. Carollo was that this is an unfriendly business city. He was responsible for taking away a grant that I applied for, and he manipulated the council into not giving me that grant. He's done a lot of damage to the city. It's time to get together. It's time to come back to be what we were. Yeah, what we were, because right now we are not. There's a lot of BS from that gentleman out there right now. He just accused me of being a crook outside, and he continues to do so, and accuses you of corruption, and accuses you of corruption. That was nonsense. So it was a great choice. I commend the three of you, and I'm very disappointed with two of you, and Maria Rodriguez, and Bettina, Councilwoman. And that statement about Venezuela, I guess the truth came out about you, Bettina, with that statement. We gotta come back. We gotta come back. If you respect me and my organization, what I can do for this city is tremendous. But what we have is a block. Blocking the progress that I can do for the city, the help that I can bring you. Because whenever Councilwoman Ruiz calls, Councilwoman Cristi Fraga, if you were to call me, Ana Maria, I'm there. Councilwoman. And I've always been there. And I've always been there for this community. It's very important that these last two gentlemen said, let's get back in here. Let's focus on business. We're an unfriendly business city. I've suggested in the past that we become a tech city, a startup city, an entrepreneurship city. We have the potential to do just that with the right people in the council. Great choice today. It took guts, and it was the right thing to do. God bless you, and thank you. Thank you.
Francisco Pancho Costa. I know everybody. I know Mrs. Bettina Rodriguez. I know Ana Maria. I know Luigi Boria. I know Councilwoman Cristi. Vice Mayor, and Mrs. Sandra Reis, Councilwoman. Listen, I have 71 years old. Sometimes you're going to see the news, but actually, it's Doral, because I love Doral. Last Friday, when I go here to the press conference for the city manager, I'm inside of the press conference. I'm inside of the place. And the secretary or the manager or assistant of police came to see me. Please, Mr. Tosta, I have something better for you. Come with me. Said, oh, I have exclusive, something like that. I go outside with my director and my photographer. 3 journalists inside of the place. When outside in the elevator, the lady said, it's impossible, you come back to the place. He said, why? Because Mr. Carollo don't want you to stay in the press conference. This is not the house of JOE CAROLLO. This is the house for the people, for the DORAL people. He, ¿cómo se dice? Violó. Because the First Amendment of the United States is free press. This is the First Amendment. It's in 1970, not 219 years ago. You don't care. He said, get out. Immediately when I in the elevator, 2 policemen come to me and say, this is a slope, something like that. The police. So they said, we wanted to, but I can explain in English. Okay. No, que estaban,
¿Quiere que te haga traductor?
I continue because they got me in the listen, I understand.
No,
I already see everyone had to write me the letter or something because I did this for my honor, because I have 50 years in the journalism business. 50 years. Never in conference at some point put me out of the press conference. And one more thing. A few minutes ago, when you vote for the assistant manager, everybody vote. Bettina, Anna, Luigi, Christy, and Sandra. Everybody say yes. This is the harmony. This is what the city needs. The union of the everybody. Because for the union of the everybody, the city goes up, up, and up. Thank you very much.
Puede hablar 2 veces en un tema. Yo había hablado una vez, las otras concejales habían hablado 2 veces y a mí no se me permitió hablar. Ana María, la concejala Ana María Rodríguez y yo, las 2 le pedimos que le permitieran a JOE CAROLLO y al asistente Van Gates que explicaran la posición que le habían acusado. Tampoco lo dejó hablar. ¿Qué es lo que pasa cuando las personas no lo dejan hablar? Es una dictadura. Yo me referí a la dictadura y lo sigo diciendo.
La vicealcaldesa ha dicho ahora mismo que esta reunión no era para votar a la alcalde.
Bueno, como yo dije, si parece un pato, camina como un pato, es un pato. Ella puede haber dicho lo que dijo, pero esto es lo que se pensó que iba a pasar, pasó. Ahora ustedes lleven sus propias conclusiones.
Esto es un momento de con la suya.
En este momento, pero que estamos, gracias a Dios, en los Estados Unidos de América. Aquí es a donde estamos. Y aquí hay leyes.
¿Usted está
Y las
de que
leyes
legalmente Carollo venga contra la ciudad o contra Boria?
No, yo no digo eso. Yo no quiero que nadie ponga ninguna demanda contra mi ciudad porque eso es ejecutar. Una de las razones que no se puede ejecutar es que estamos como bomberos, constantemente apagando crisis. Ya basta de eso. Lo único que tienen que hacer es seguir la constitución que tenemos y dejar de este problema que tenemos y concentrarnos en acabar de arreglar nuestro parque, en arreglar las calles, en echar para adelante nuestra ciudad, en los centros culturales, todas las cosas que tenemos.
De acoso.
Yo, claro que fui acusada, todo el mundo lo sabe. Yo trabajé aquí por 5 años y la discriminación política que había es horrible. Ah, bueno, eso es otra cosa. Acoso de Nathan Hope, que lo estaban acusando, claro que sí. Nosotros trabajábamos juntos por 5 años. Y yo lo sentí, yo como empleada y él también. Eso estaba pasando. Eso se sabe, hay demanda, hay cosas que me he retirado porque no quiero seguir en esta situación. Yo quiero pasar la página, pero que habían por ese hostigamiento constante, lo habían. Y claro, yo no estaba aquí.
Lo que quedó claro es que la ciudad está dividida otra vez.
Bueno, mira, fíjate, Cuando tenemos que votar por cosas positivas de la ciudad, estamos todos juntos. Eso es importante. Ahora, cuando la cosa se pone política, es cuando se divide. Pero creo que todos nosotros que fuimos electos para mejorar a nuestra ciudad, votamos por cosas positivas para la ciudad. Ojalá que lo podamos seguir haciendo y que realmente se ponga fuera la política.
¿Hubo corrupción realmente en esto de votar a Carollo?
¿Diga?
¿Hubo corrupción realmente en esto para votar a Carollo?
Se está investigando. Eso es una investigación continua que está en la Comisión de Ética y vamos a ver qué es lo que dice el futuro.
¿Te mandaron a callar en la sesión?
¿Diga?
¿Te mandaron a callar en la sesión?
No, no, es que no me dejaron hablar en la sesión. Ustedes lo vieron. Los otros concejales, la ley dice que cada concejal puede hablar 2 veces. Yo pedí que se dejaran hablar y no me dejaron hablar. Y los abogados estos que han puesto ahora ellos dijeron de que sí, que no me dejaran hablar cuando él sabe demasiado bien que por ley, y ustedes mismos lo buscan, cada concejal puede hablar 2 veces. La concejala Ana María y yo, las dos pedimos que le permitieran hablar a Carollo y le permitieran a Van Gates, ya que lo habían acusado. El alcalde tampoco lo dejó hablar. ¿Cómo estaba hablando él? ¿Cómo estaba actuando él? Como un dictador. ¿De dónde es dictadura? En Venezuela y en Cuba. Se cae de la mata, que eso es lo que yo estaba diciendo. Y que no, que vaya a mi récord a ver quién soy yo.
Hay un tema interesante. La vicealcaldesa dijo que no estaba preparado este voto para hacer dimitir al administrador. Sin embargo, toda la semana anterior hubo versiones de todo tipo que aseguraban que hoy iba a ser el día.
Bueno, vuelvo y te repito lo mismo que dije. Si parece un pato, camina como un pato y canta como un pato, es un pato. Eso es lo que vimos, ¿verdad? Entonces tenían razón los rumores, aparentemente.